I just interviewed Cliff Weitzman. He is a force of nature.
So I'm super dyslexic. First, second, third, fourth grade, no matter how hard I tried, I could not figure out how to read.
Cliff built Speechify, a tool that now helps over 53 million people read and learn faster.
We've been around for 9 years and we're 52 million users, 53 million.
But what most people don't know is he only built this because he was about to fail out of college. But instead of giving up, he built accountability systems so intense that his progress was inevitable.
And I even had a consequence for myself where if I didn't do it by this date, I had to run 10 miles the next morning.
Then he applied the same intensity to his content.
Today we make 8,000 pieces of content a month.
He studied viral ads, wore suits in pools, and rewrote his best performing scripts 47 times. After that, he gets a call from Ari Emanuel.
He's like, Cliff, meet Snoop. Snoop, meet Cliff. Snoop, you should put your voice on Speechify. It does XYZ. He goes, oh man.
So I sat down with Cliff, and in this episode, you'll learn how to create accountability in your life and business to stay consistent, how to study and recreate viral content, and how solving your own problem deeply might just lead to millions. Let's dive in. Cliff, where'd you come up with this idea for Speechify?
So I'm super dyslexic. My dad, who is just absolutely incredible, would sit and read books to me. And if he didn't have the time to read to me, he would record himself on a cassette tape. And I would fall asleep every night listening to this cassette tape of my dad essentially reading Harry Potter. I moved to the US when I was 13. And the way I learned English was I listened to Harry Potter audiobooks 22 times in a row. Still have the first chapter memorized. And even going into college, I went to Brown for university. My mom had to read my summer reading book to me because I was not good enough at reading to do it for myself. And I realized that I would fail out of this very fancy school if I did not have a better solution because my parents were not coming with me to college. And so I ended up building this text-to-speech tool that would read out everything. Initially, it let me take pictures of physical documents. It would OCR them and then text-to-speech them. And then I built this really good PDF parser. And then I built this Chrome extension that added play buttons throughout my browser. So in my email, in my Google Drive, in my docs, then I built this editor that made it really easy to make voiceovers to create videos and stuff like that. But I just didn't want to fail college. So I made Speechify.
And so you're solving this problem for yourself at first. Were you planning on turning this into a business, or how did you first solve it for yourself and then realize, wait a minute, you might have something big here?
So when I went to college, I started building companies, like little products here and there. I built 2 of them in high school. When I was in university, I built about 36 products. Everything from 3D printed skateboard brakes to iPhone apps and websites and payment systems. Speechify was not one of those products I built in order to have a music company. It was a necessity hack, very much like a crutch. A couple of those projects that I did had more success than they had any right to. When I was graduating, I had one internship in Austin, Texas, and the company was amazing, but I realized there's no way I'm going to work for Google or Palantir or any of these companies. I was struggling to deal with kind of student loans that I had, and so I built a couple of products that made me enough money to support that. And I was like, well, what do I want to spend the rest of my life on? And there's a lot of people who I admire who became very financially successful and then invested all their time in philanthropy. And I was like, well, can I do both at the same time? And I ended up writing this 30-page paper about all my world's use. And the conclusion was, above everything else, I wanted to be the person that I needed the most when I was a kid. And the thing I really needed was someone to do my readings for me. And so that broke down into this, list of 28 principles that I believe that most other people don't believe. But it also resulted in me deciding that, you know what, I'm going to full send it on trying to solve dyslexia. And this was around 2015. So I just read a paper from DeepMind called WaveNet about autoregressive speech. And I got really down the rabbit hole on narrow applications of deep learning around transcription, translation, natural language processing, recommendation engines. And I realized I could build a text-to-speech tool that was 1,000x better than what currently exists, and an audiobooks tool that was 1,000x better than what could exist, and actually web editor using AI that was 1,000x better than what currently existed. So I was like, cool, let me just build the user-facing portions of this. So I built the MVPs, and then later we bought billions of dollars worth of H100 GPUs, got a ton of data, trained our own models, got good at building products that users really enjoyed how to use. The first kind of inkling I had that this should be something that other people should use, not me, is I won this scholarship for kids with learning differences. And there was this summit they had us in New York, and nobody used text-to-speech. Even though it was a lot of kids with dyslexia and ADHD and low vision and autism and concussions and people who had, second language learners of English. And I was like, hey, can I give a quick presentation on how to use text-to-speech? I think people would really benefit from this. And they let me do it. So I plugged in my computer. I kind of showed people what I was doing. A year and a half later, I was still getting text messages from people. Hey, Cliff, you might not remember me. My name is Jeremy. You gave me this flash drive with Speechify back. It was not Speechify, with this Mac app you built. It broke. is there an update? And I'll be like, yeah, boom. And I'd go and fix it for them. And I realized that like, it didn't make sense that this cohort of people were the only people who were going to use text-to-speech because it fundamentally completely changed my life. And I was like, okay, let me actually make a product that's good. And so that's the point where I decided, okay, I'm going to actually make this into a product. And that was challenging too, because I didn't take a job after college. So I didn't go to work for a big company. I didn't do a master's. I just kind of like had an apartment next to my school, twiddling my thumbs, trying to figure it out. And kind of that was the start.
So you started with this big vision and you have these ideas and sort of working backwards. And then you got to the point where, okay, I just need to pick one of these. What is it going to be? You got pretty clear on solving your own problem and some of this early validation. How did you then get some of your first users to start paying you?
Step number one, when I decided this was going to be a business, I made a web page using Stripe that let you pre-order the product for $100. And I remember I hosted it on paperplane.io, which was literally hosted on my Dropbox at the time. And I made a list of 5 Facebook groups and 5 Reddit groups that had to do with dyslexia. And I had a calendar invite that I sent to my friend Chris Barber and my friend Simmer Manget and Valentin Perez that said, Cliff must post in all of these groups by this date a video about Speechify, allowing people to pre-order the product for $100. And it was not yet going to be available. It was just people pre-ordering the product. And I remember having so much anxiety about putting this up, but I did. And I even had a consequence for myself where if I didn't do it by this date, I had to run 10 miles the next morning. And it was challenging because Reddit wouldn't let me post more than 3 times the same message. And so I had to make like extra Reddit accounts in order to complete the thing. And I did it and people pre-ordered, not a crazy amount, but enough to validate the idea. And so that was the first time people paid me for the product.
You've created a bunch of these hacks in your life and your business, and we're gonna touch on a few of my favorites here in a moment. But first, back to Speechify. Like, how long has the company been around now, and like how many users do you have today?
We've been around for 9 years, and we're 52 million users, 53 million.
Wow! I just was playing around with it this morning. I saw you have some new voice options. You could get Snoop Dogg.
It's Big Snoop D-O-double-G. I had Cliff over to my crib and he personally recorded my voice.
Or Gwyneth Paltrow.
I first heard about Speechify from my husband.
Among a bunch of others, but those were 2 that stuck out to me. How did you come up with that idea and how has it been received?
The first celebrity voice we added was Gwyneth. We had become friends through a mutual friend. And I moved to LA and she was one of the first people to come visit me in my new house in LA, and we were hanging out and we were doing dinner together later that week with her family. And her husband, Brad, who's wonderful and created Glee, was sharing how he's also dyslexic and it's really difficult for him to read scripts. And he was like, if I only had my beautiful wife's voice to read into me, that would be great. And I was like, well, actually, we can make that happen. So the next day I rocked over to their place with a microphone and I recorded her for like an hour and we added her voice and it was great. And then we had a user, Ari Emanuel, who's the founder of Endeavor. We became good friends. And at a certain point, he gave me a call when I was shooting an ad and he's like, Cliff, meet Snoop. Snoop, meet Cliff. Snoop, you should put your voice on Speechify. It does XYZ. He goes, oh man. And so I literally like got into a text thread with Snoop Dogg. Same day, drove to his studio and then had him record his voice for Speechify, and we added his voice to Speechify. And since then, we've added, a bunch of different people. Mr. Beast, I think, was the most recent one. Ali Abdallah's on there as well. My favorite podcast is How to Take Over the World by Ben Wilson. I love his voice. That's probably the voice I use the most. And then now anyone can add their own voice. So if you click add my voice, it takes about 10 seconds of you speaking, and then it's literally perfect. Like, it's eerie how accurate it is, both on the iOS app Chrome extension, but even better on the Speechify Studio, where you could generate voiceovers for anything. So people often use this kind of prosumers to make like exceptionally high quality videos and high quality audio experiences for marketing. That's a series of features that we saw the opportunity to build. And then we invested a lot of time and effort in training, data, and then processing to get to the point that it's a good experience.
One of my favorite stories about you, something that I've tried to implement in different ways in my own life, is back to your early days at college at Brown. How did you meet so many people, and what specifically did you do at the dining halls?
Mind you, I learned English when I was 13, and the culture I grew up in is different than the American culture. So it was really difficult for me to make friends. And I would say freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school, I didn't have many friends. And my best friends were my siblings. And the point where I finally kind of found my people in high school is I got really into parkour. So like, and then tricking. Tricking is like a combination of gymnastics and martial arts. And I had, lifelong friends that I'm still good friends with since. And when I got to university, I realized quickly that the biggest value is not the classes, it's the people. Brown is 6,000 undergrads, 2,000 grads. And so many people I found were so interesting and interested, very deep. I sleep very little, maybe 5.5 hours, which is bad. I'm trying to fix it. But it's mainly because I'm so excited to wake up in the morning and just there's so many things to learn. I don't want to go to sleep. And so my favorite way to not go to sleep is to talk to interesting people. And my friend group in college was incredible because it was all these people who were so smart and interesting and sophisticated and extroverted and just deep. And I did this every single semester, not just with my grade, but with the incoming grades and with the grades above me. I actually applied to transfer to Stanford because I got to know everybody at Brown. I ran out of new people to meet. I didn't get in though. And so luckily I got to stay at my favorite place in the world. So I graduated, I got sponsored to stay as a visiting scholar at Brown. So I was building kind of my stuff and still living on campus. But I hired some folks in San Francisco and Palo Alto. So I was doing kind of half Brown, half Palo Alto. And I didn't get as much mental stimulation from non-founders. Right? I had friends who were founders, but it was difficult for me to meet new friends because I wasn't working at Google. There were not like other people in the office. I was mainly like in my apartment coding. And there was no big cross-pollination between fields, right? At Brown, you have artists and athletes and philosophers and theologists and, archaeologists, not just like tech pros. And so I really was trying to recreate that experience for myself. And in the end, really, I recreated it through Instagram. I'll just reach out to any person who, if I see a reel on TikTok or Instagram that I think is awesome, I will always message that person and I will fly to wherever they are in the world, spend a couple of days with them. And it doesn't matter if I do it in order to learn how to rap or how to play guitar or how to do a Webster, which is a move in parkour, or how to shoot on goal better for soccer, or how to do ads. I'll just go and make friends wherever they are in the world. And it's really opened up my life where I have this incredible cross-pollination of just very interesting people.
And this is a big difference from how you started here in this country. I think you immigrated here at 13. Can you just talk about what that felt like to be in a new place and also not really understand how to read and what was going on there?
My parents gave us a choice. They were like, listen, we want to go on an adventure to America. I was bought in. I was like, let's go on an adventure. I'm so excited. And I went with 4 younger siblings. I had a group of friends wherever I would go. And my siblings to this day are my best friends. Tyler leads the AI team at Speechify. He joined me as my co-founder 5 years in. My sister Geffen leads our growth team for ads. My mom leads the second recruiting team at Speechify. So it's become a family business. And it's amazing for me. And I'm actually a really big fan of, if we have an engineer who's exceptional, I always try to hire their partner or their siblings, because I think that typically smart people attract other smart people to them who are high quality and trustworthy. And I think that you can afford to compensate a lot better people who you really trust. And so we've had at least 15 instances of someone who joined Speechify. And I was like, you're doing so good. We need to hire more people under you. Who do you recommend? And they're like, I don't know anyone. I was like, do you have a brother? And they're like, yeah. What does your brother do? And 50% of the time, they're also a software engineer or they're also into growth. And I was like, all right, can you give me his phone number? And I'll call them live, convince them to join Speechify. And that person suddenly loves their job more and is able to create a lot more value.
I think I've yet to talk to, I don't know, maybe 9 out of 10 people that I talk to, I also identify as slow readers. And so your product, there's a huge TAM with just people with dyslexia, but also just people who want to learn information at a quicker rate, right? And what my aha moment was, I've had at least 2 studying and researching for this, is you have something about you, maybe at a younger age, it was unrealistic or unreasonable expectations for yourself, but you just had this massive bias towards action. And then you became friends with interesting people. You started doing interesting things and became a person who is therefore just taking this action and getting some of these, what now isn't that unreasonable to action, outcomes to get. And the other thing is you've bottled your energy and excitement and you just put it towards your projects. And so when I watched the Read to You original video that went viral, and maybe we'll show it here on the screen.
How come every time that I'm trying to figure out a sentence, it feels like a math equation?
It is such an amazing, almost piece of art for one, but it also is very aligned to what you are trying to do. You're you're sharing this novel, interesting like idea in a novel and interesting way where you have a split screen and then it's showing the product as you go, but you're also doing a really good job telling the story. And it's like kind of a banger. Like it might get stuck in your head if you watch it. And so can you talk about how you created that and how impactful it was for you?
I learned at a certain point that in order to go viral on the internet, you just have to put up a lot of reps. And we were making 100 pieces of content a week at the time. Fast forward to today. Today we make 8,000 pieces of content a month. I was really frustrated that all of our content that was performing was funny. And I learned in speech and debate in high school that to be persuasive, pathos, logos, ethos. So ethos, not that hard. Logos, not that hard. But pathos is the most effective, right? How do you impact people's feelings? And I didn't succeed in figuring out how to get people to feel the way I wanted them to feel. And how do I be vulnerable? And I ended up writing this kind of 500-word piece about my experience with dyslexia. And that had gone viral on Facebook in the past. I really like philosophy. And my view is that the modern day philosophers are musicians. So more people are impacted by the philosophy of Drake and Kanye and Russ than are by the philosophy of any modern day philosopher, because people just listen to their thoughts. And I was like, okay, how do I put this into a song? And so I wrote a song about my experience with dyslexia. And in the same classic example that we talked about before, I started DMing people who I thought were good at music. And there was one guy whose flow I really admired. His name's Connor Price. And he
I love Connor.
He happened to live in Vegas at the time, and he wasn't that big. He had like 50,000 followers. And so I just DM'd him and I was like, hey, listen, you have a flow that to me is similar to a mix of Logic, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and John Bellion and a couple of other people who I really admire. I would love to study under you. How much would you charge per hour to coach me on flow? And he was like, oh, bro, I saw what you do with Speechify. Don't worry about it. Happy to kind of coach you for free. And I was like, sweet. And so we did like 4 Zoom calls in a week. And he taught me a lot of things on how to modulate my voice to flow in the way that I wanted to. And at the end, he was like, listen, this dyslexia song is really cool. If you want to record it, I have a studio. You can come by and we'll record it together. And I was like, I would love to do that. So I flew to his house. We recorded, that's his microphone. And we recorded the song. And then I listened to it like 100 times in a row. And I was like, I could do it better. So I flew back, re-recorded it. And then I had like a version that I liked. And then I hired like 5 different graphic designers who are good at animation to make the video that you're seeing now. And this is maybe version 5. Actually, that's wrong. This is style number 5, version number 20. And I think that the thing about this is kind of relatively unique. And there's 2.2 million views here, but on Instagram and other places, there's tens of millions more. If you are trying to get people to fall in love with your product and with your vision, I don't even want to call it a brand in this case. Thinking through, okay, I'm engaging them with funny, I'm engaging them with logos, I'm engaging them with ethos. How do I also engage them with pathos?
Can you just unpack that a little bit more, like the difference between pathos, ethos?
Yes, of course. So these are words in Greek. Logos, logic. Ethos, credibility. Pathos is feeling. So if you want to be persuasive, you want to hit people on all 3 counts. You want to make them feel, you want to make them understand, and you want to make them believe that you are a credible source. I would add a 4th one, which is funny. I believe that humor is actually the most persuasive of all 3 of these. Nothing works like humor. Humor is the absolute best.
How do you save context into your phone?
Oh, wow. Great question. I will never leave an interaction with somebody without getting their phone number if I think that's like an interesting person. And so all you do is you open the contacts app, you give them the phone, and they just put in their name, they put in their number. I don't want to put their name myself because I'm going to misspell it. So I don't do the weird thing where people like type the phone number and have the person call you because I'll misspell your name. And then I have a shortcut in my phone. If I just type CW, it autocompletes to Cliff Weitzman. The first thing that happened is they put my contact in their phone, and then I'll immediately text message CW. And so they get Cliff Weitzman, and they're saved in my phone already. Boom. Now we have like a text thread. And let's say I'm going to work out the next day and I thought I was a cool person. Like, I hate working out alone. So working out is my way of like spending time with people, even on dates. I'll invite people to go work out with me. And they're like, hey, do you want to like work out? I'm going to go at 2 p.m. And they'll be like, yeah, everybody wants to work out. Like, everybody wants someone to keep them accountable to working out. And if they didn't come today, they'd probably come next week. And then I also have an app, My Contacts Pro, that backs up all my contacts, and another one called iContacts Plus that organizes my contacts by the date in which they were added to my phone. So let's say I met someone like 3 Christmases ago at like a party. I'll just go to that Christmas and I'll be like, all right, here's the 12 people that I met at that party. Here's this specific person. And I add the note, oh, like we danced to Gangnam Style. So I'd write Gangnam Style, yellow hat. And then I'll message that person like, hey, Connor, I remember you were really good at like this one thing to do with Microsoft APIs. Can you like give me advice on this. That's what I do.
I love that. Who's the happiest person you know?
For the longest period of time, it was me. The challenge is you can't identify other people's happiness. I think the happiest person I know is Rohan Pavalori, who is our chief business officer at Speechify. Yeah, it is Rohan. And he just gives a lot of love to other people. He very recently got married, and his wife is incredible. He's very ambitious and he's perfectly applied. He's doing the right thing for him at the right time, and he just has consistently done throughout his life. And for the longest time, it was me. Right now, it's not, partly because I am not in a relationship, and I think that I just create a lot of love that I need to give. And I think that there's a great line, grief is love that has nowhere else to go. And I'm in this interesting spot with Speechify where we accomplished all the early goals that we had, but the new goals are really big. And so I think you said something really interesting earlier, which was, it sounds like, Cliff, you had all these audacious goals that sounded irrational when you were a kid. And now there may be earned. But the funny part is my goals right now are definitely still irrational. However, they're too realistic. And I'm very actively working and writing and journaling and thinking and reading towards adjusting my goals so that they will be as irrational today as my goals were irrational when I was 13 years old. And I'm actually extremely uncomfortable with how not irrational my goals are today. And so I'm trying to update that, and I'm trying to come up with a framework for what is the dream that I have, that I'm dreaming, that is both huge and tractable and attainable if I do the right things.
Also, you guys are doing a campaign on AppSumo, which is cool. Can you talk about why you're doing that and how that came to be?
Yeah. So Noah, he sent me a DM on Twitter, and he's like, hey, we're doing this thing. We're putting a collection of great products for kind of creators and prosumers. And, I know your product, I use your product. I think that you guys would be a great fit. Would you be interested in hopping on? And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this community. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. Would love to support it. I am always looking for opportunities to help other people who are entrepreneurially minded create content. And so that's the reason why we created the Speechify studio. And 2, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD. And so it's great to be able to support that community. And so that was an easy thing to say yes to.
Amazing. And we'll link everything down below in the show notes. Cliff, where can people find you on the internet?
Easiest place to find me is YouTube, Cliff Weitzman. Instagram, even better, Cliff Weitzman, CliffWeitzman. But if you want the OG stuff, go Cliff Weitzman Medium. My Medium page, I used to write a lot in when I was 22. And so if you want the unadulterated philosophy of the 1,800 books I read before I started Speechify and how I did what I did, that's a great place to start. And then I wrote a book about all my worldviews. It's not published anywhere. It's 60 pages. If you DM me and you're like, hey, Cliff, I listened to this entire thing and I would love to read your book about your life philosophies, DM me and I'll send it to you.
Amazing. Cliff, dude, thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Mitchell. Thanks for having me.